Hi BookTube, I'm here with my top 10 classics. I have a confession to make. I hate Pride and Prejudice. I have hated Pride and Prejudice since I first picked it up. It was the first classic I read that I hated, and that's when I understood the feeling. Finally, what people say when they hate required reading and when they hate reading classics. So, I wanted to present to you my 10 favorite classics, so that even though you may hate one that seems to be a book that everyone likes, there are still some classics out there for everyone. My classics are from 1818 to 1957, so I've chosen some more modern classics for people who may want to start there, as well as some older classics, so if you're, more interested in, say, the 19th century literature, you can go there. So there's a nice wide range here. And these are my personal favorites. Okay? So coming at number 10, I have Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. This was published in 1957. This is the epic tale of Dagny Taggart, who basically runs a train company in all but name. And she's a huge proponent of progress, patents, and personal responsibility. And the world begins to change. Particularly the economy of the world and the working world starts to change. Think along the lines of communism. And things start going horribly wrong for her, obviously. And she begins to hear this character named John Galt, and she goes searching for him. There's a lot of opposition to the book because a lot of people see it as a soapbox for Ayn Rand's philosophy, which is called objectivism. But I don't really want to go into the philosophy because of the story itself. I feel the story of Dagny is compelling enough to keep you interested. Okay, so we're hopping back into the 19th century with Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy. Now this is one of his lesser known novels. He's more known for, say, The Mayor of Casterbridge or Tess the Dubervilles. And this was published in 1895. But this is my personal favorite from Thomas Hardy. We follow Jude Folly as he strives to be a university scholar, despite the fact that he's from a working class family. And in the 19th century, this is a big problem. So he eventually makes his way into the city, and he enters into a relationship with his cousin. And he doesn't marry his cousin because they're both previously married, and they end up living together in a sexual relationship, which is a big no-no at the time, I think we all know. And, they have kids and everything, and just a bit of a spoiler, not really, it all comes crashing down in a tragic end. But this is so beautifully written, and I really identified with Jude wanting to make more for himself than just continuing working on a farm or being a mason, and go on and be an actual scholar. So we'll jump forward again in time to 1957 with On the Road by Jack Kerouac. This is the semi-autobiographical tale of Jack Kerouac. We follow the characters Sal and Dean as they travel across the United States, and it is basically a road trip book. But the language is absolutely amazing. Just the mastery of the language he has is beautiful. I just want to read a passage, which is my favorite passage. In the grey dawn that puffed ghost-like about the windows of the theatre and hugged its eaves, I was sleeping with my head on the wooden arm of a seat, as 6 attendants of the theatre converged with their night's total of swept-up rubbish and created a huge dusty pile that reached to my nose as I snored head down, till they almost swept me away too. This was reported to me by Dean, who was watching from 10 seats behind. All the cigarette butts, the bottles, the matchbooks, the come and the gone were swept up in this pile. Had they taken me with it, Dean would never have seen me again. He would have had to roam the entire United States and look in every garbage pail from coast to coast before he found me, embryonically convoluted among the rubbishes of my life, his life, and the life of everybody concerned and not concerned. What would I have said to him from my rubbish room? Don't bother me, man. I'm happy where I am. You lost me one night in Detroit in August 1949. What right have you to come and disturb my reverie in all this pukish can? What difference does it make, after all? Anonymity in the world of men is better than fame in heaven, for what's heaven, what's earth? All in the mind. It's beautiful. Mwah. So, coming in at number 7 is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, written in 1866. This is the story of Raskolnikov, who's committed a murder. And it's basically how he psychologically destroys himself after. This book I find is really important because you actually really sympathize with Raskolnikov. You sympathize with this murderer. And it gets you to think about crime and punishment in different ways. And, you know, we empathize with someone that we'd normally find absolutely deplorable. And this book is brilliant at doing that. So coming in at number 6, I'm switching things up and recommending some short stories. So this is a series of short stories called The Dubliners by James Joyce, and it was released in 1914. As you can tell from the title, these are a series of short stories that all take place within Dublin. It's the first of Joyce's work, and it's the easiest to read, and it's where I recommend everyone start, whether you're working your way up to the challenge of Ulysses, or whether you just want some short stories to read. Dubliners is the place to start. Again, the language is just captivating, and I want to read you the last line. It's not a spoiler, don't worry, it's just so beautifully written. His soul swooned slowly as he heard the snow falling faintly through the universe, and faintly falling like the descent of their last end upon all the living and the dead. So I really find that Joyce manages to do in short stories what some authors even fail to do in a full-length novel. He creates characters and situations that just compel you to keep on reading. Number 5 is another series of short stories, and of course it's the short stories of Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, these were released between the years 1832 and 1849, and these short stories contain more than just the telltale heart, which I think we all know. I love the horror and the absurdity and the way he has with language. It's just captivating. You know, there's still stories that we find terrifying today. They're stories about guilt and obsession and death and torture and scary stuff. And I want to recommend a short story in particular, tell you my favorite short story, and that is Berenice, or Bernice. It's about a man who becomes obsessed with his cousin's teeth. It doesn't seem scary at first, but I was reading it lying down and I literally jumped up at the end just of how horrifying it was. Number 4 is Lord of the Flies by William Golding, and this was written in 1954. This is one of the books I always loved to teach as a teacher. It's about a group of boys whose plane has crash landed on a deserted island where they're the only survivors. They have to shelter, feed, and keep themselves away from the monsters. So they basically have to take care of themselves. And he manages to set up a dystopian on an island that takes place in our real world. I think it's an interesting examination of society, of how we can come about a dystopian where we don't need all that special technology, we don't need a war, we don't need anything to initiate this. This is what we're like, is what William Golding is proposing, I guess, in this novel. And number 3 is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. This is the earliest novel I'm including here, and it was written in 1818. It's about a man who has created a man creature out of dead body parts and has brought him to life, and then has believed that he's created this monster. So this is really considered the father of all, or should I say, the mother of all science fiction. So this novel really has you question what it means to be human. You know, who is the real monster here? Is it Frankenstein? Or is it the creature that he's created that's more human? So my penultimate choice is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This was written in 1932, and I don't think I could talk enough about this book. This novel is about a society that has been engineered in every sense of the word to make the citizens happy, thoughtless, and consumers. What Huxley proposes is that our pursuit of thoughtless entertainment and distractions is what is going to bring about the dystopian world that he sees. Okay, so my all-time favorite book is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. This was published in 1844, and this book has everything in it. It has revenge and romance and adventure and, oh, you name it, it's in there. And, you know, there's even chapters that explore science and philosophy. And read the unabridged version, please, because there's just so much depth to it that is so wonderful. So it's the epic tale of Edmond Dantes, who's on top of the world. He's about to be made captain, he's going to marry the girl of his dreams, he's getting everything that he wants and deserves in this world, until these people begin to conspire against him and send him to prison. And, you know, he eventually escapes and begins to wreak his revenge. And just the way he goes about it, it's not your typical revenge of killing people. He ruins their lives. And it is just beautiful. Beautiful. I forgot to get the line.